Welcome, everybody. We're excited to introduce how Alation is reimagining data quality monitoring, making it smarter, scalable, and deeply contextual using Agentic AI. So let's explore what that means for your organization. And before we dive in, quick intros. My name is Steve Woolidge. I run product marketing here at Alation. Been here for a couple of years now. Been in the data space for over 20. And I'm really excited to have Kyle with us. He is our dedicated product manager focused on data quality. And we'll be talking through today's session and showcasing the exciting innovations we made in the space very recently, in addition to highlighting the track record we've had in this industry around data quality and our partnerships. So in terms of the agenda and what we're covering today, first we'll look at why data quality monitoring is more critical than ever. Then we'll get into the Open Data Quality Initiative that we've had for a number of years with over 20 partners, and then shift into talking about this exciting new product introduction that we've done around Alation data quality. We're going to explain how that approach is different, and Kyle is going to give us a live demo of this product that is now shipping and already in the hands of several customers that are putting it into production as we speak. So this is hot off the presses. So with that, we'll wrap things up. We've got some additional resources, and let's go ahead and get started. So why data quality monitoring? Well, you can't have good data governance. You can't have trusted decisions without high quality data. And especially when you start thinking now about more autonomous agents or applications that are using data, if there's incorrect information there can be more hallucinations or errors, not just in recommendation engines and machine learning models, but think about generative AI and how it could potentially struggle with structured data without A, the right data, and B, the context available to that. So that's really why we're here, is to help tackle that for organizations, both people and the applications they want to build on top of that foundation of trusted data. And poor data quality impacts everyone. Data scientists can waste, it says 60% of their time here. I've heard it as high as 80% in the traditional data management world. Organizations can lose money in terms of $5 million annually as an estimate for 25% of organizations from Forrester, and a certain percentage 25 million or more, and that's even higher now when you think about inflation. But worst of all, issues can often go unnoticed until it's too late. So this isn't just a technical problem, it's also business risk. When you think about the trust you could potentially lose with your consumers, brand reputation, and everything else, it's pretty obvious, and it's probably why you're here, because data quality is super important. So let's talk a little bit about why data quality has been so hard to solve. As data professionals, we often struggle with things like, what do we actually want to monitor? When you talk about big data and these massive ecosystems of different databases and BI tools, et cetera, that's out there, just figuring out what's the most important can be really difficult. So teams struggle with prioritization. Then there's how to monitor. What quality dimensions do you want to put in place around completeness or accuracy, which can sometimes be complex to apply at scale. And then you get into challenges of ownership, testing, resourcing. Where do you take action? So it's no wonder the data quality programs can stall or stay reactive. So this is just a little bit of the perspective that we have in talking with our customers, but we're actually going to open this up for a poll. Would love to get some feedback from the audience here. So let me just stop sharing my screen. We have a little poll here, which is essentially these same questions. So you should see a poll pop up for you, which is, what is your one biggest challenge that keeps you up at night if you're dealing with data quality, whether it's how to monitor, what to monitor, how do you test that on an ongoing basis and observe that quality, how do you scale that data quality program across the organization with limited resources, and where to take ownership, or where to act and understand the ownership of the different data assets that are available. So hopefully this is popping up for everybody. I'm only seeing a few responses so far. I know there's a few of you on the call, so go ahead and click into that. If you're just listening as you walk in the morning, maybe pop it up real quick and just reply to the poll there. Okay, we're starting to see some traction now. A lot of people picking that first one, how to monitor. That is definitely an important one. Hopefully you're looking at all the options. How to scale, that's number 2. Yeah, I think we're kind of reaching a consensus. So how to monitor is number 1, how to scale and managing that growth with limited resources, the number 2 concern, and then where to take action is number 3. So appreciate that. We'll probably do a follow-on blog with other feedback from this if you want to continue to enter in your votes. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and get back to the presentation now. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Kyle to talk about our Open Data Quality Initiative and the partners that we work with in and around data quality. Kyle?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. You can go to the next slide here. So quick interruption here. What I'm going to talk about today is basically a reaffirmation of our Open Data Quality Partnership. And what Steve's going to talk about on subsequent slides is about our own solution, which you can think of as an end-to-end solution for defining, executing, and remediating data quality rules and recommendations. However, we've long had this open data quality framework that has allowed a number of great partners to connect via our APIs and expose data quality rules through the Alation catalog. And we fully plan to maintain this approach. So if you go to the next slide, Steve, you can see here we've collected about 20 total partners, and since we've announced this native offering, we've actually seen an increase in engagement from not only customers but partners as well. And we fully understand that there's a wide spectrum to this market, meaning what Alation DQ might do is different than what another vendor might do. And we've had customers come to us and look to partner us with using a vendor for, say, a more observability-oriented use case, and Alation for a more data quality and monitoring-oriented use case. And so that really sums up, and we plan to maintain our openness in this market. So if you go to the next slide, Steve, we'll flip through this pretty quickly. There's this data health tab concept we have, which is what we do is you can define data quality rules in a partner vendor and then expose them in this health tab that exists within Alation. You also can see upstream issues on the next slide, if you go to, Steve, from a lineage perspective. And so these are some baseline functionalities and pieces we provide, and we plan to maintain them. And yes, we love our partners. So back to you, Steve.
Awesome. Thanks for that walkthrough, Kyle. Cool. So now we're going to get into how this all comes together. And with Alation, data quality is something we've been talking about and partnering with for a long time, but we've also heard a lot from our customers that they would like to have capabilities integrated directly into the platform where they're already working. So as they're setting data control policies, data governance policies, enriching metadata around the data assets, the critical data elements and things like that, there's also a way to apply data quality monitoring checks and such. So instead of jumping between tools, now users have a way to act on those insights around data quality, set up those data quality monitoring rules, and monitor them all directly within the platform. And just real quickly for people that maybe aren't familiar with Alation, we have been in the data space for over 12 years. We really pioneered the modern data catalog back in 2012, and we've evolved into a leader around metadata management as recognized by Gartner, data governance as well, and now agentic data intelligence, powering over 600 customers, including 40% of the Fortune 100 on a global basis. We have a lot of integrations across all the different systems in your data estate, whether that's databases, BI tools, file systems, and we've more and more begin to integrate AI into our platform. We started out with the first machine learning data catalog, which helped create titles for column headers, so it was more business language than technical, and we've evolved that with additional agents around suggested descriptions, or what we call the documentation agent, a new data quality agent, which is part of the solution I'll talk through in a minute, as well as a new data products builder agent that we've also announced recently. And also very recently, last month, in fact, we announced an acquisition of a very exciting company called NumberStation. This is a Stanford origin AI company known for applying foundation models to structured data tasks. And this technology from NumberStation automates data management and analytics using natural language. And their engineering talent is helping us advance our agentic AI capabilities in the platform so that in addition to those agents I talked about before, we'll also be expanding the automation portfolio that we have to help speed up those mundane tasks and also enable a whole new class of agentic workflows and applications on top of this rich metadata and governance capabilities of the Alation platform. So more of that on another webinar. This is a quick view of the platform. I'm not going to go through it in detail other than to say that we have a lot of rich capabilities around metadata management, active data governance, intelligent agents that are layered on top of that, which we talked about, and data lineage capabilities, et cetera. So this is the platform that allows us to scale data management with our teams that don't always have a lot of resources by using automation that's in the platform itself. So the data quality agent is really working alongside of these documentation and data products agents to embed trust directly into how data is used throughout this platform and across your organization, because it's really giving you a front door to your entire data estate where we inventory and catalog all of that metadata, apply governance policies and such throughout. And in this case, data quality is not a standalone tool. It's fully integrated. So those data quality signals can be surfaced in the catalog through other alerting mechanisms, which we'll talk about in a moment, so that you can be made aware when there's an issue potentially that needs to be addressed. And you might be saying to yourself, really? Okay, everybody's talking about AI, so we get it. Everybody's talking about this, and yes, it is the future. People are putting AI into all of their products, and I would say in this case, Alation Data Quality Agent is different in that it's not just a chatbot or a prompt tool. We're actually delivering guided, intelligent workflows, leveraging the rich metadata that's in the platform, as well as agentic capabilities to suggest the right data quality checks, to avoid the manual rule writing that often goes hand in hand with data quality products, to eliminate guesswork and provide faster, more scalable monitoring. I know scalable is one of the things that was number 2 on the poll that we put out there earlier. So that's really the problem that we're trying to solve across your entire data state, built right into how you're already working within Alation. And if you don't believe me, Gardner says it's hot too, so I'm not going to talk too much about the slide. But yes, Agentic AI is the future. It's mind-blowing. It's just very exciting. I've been in the data space, like I said, for a long time, and to see how quickly generative AI and other AI applications are being built into the data management process and what it's enabling is it's amazing and exciting to be part of. So let's dive in on Alation data quality specifically and what sets it apart. So what makes Alation data quality different is that we're not just layering AI on top of legacy workflows that we had in the product. We're rethinking how data quality should get done. So first of all, we're using behavioral signals like query logs and usage patterns from that rich metadata that we've captured for years to help provide intelligent recommendations to teams on what they should apply data quality monitors to focus on what matters most to their business based on popularity and other indicators of value. So that means you're not going to waste as much time figuring out and applying data quality checks to every single table in your environment. You can just focus on the ones that have the biggest business impact. The second, we eliminate the manual rule writing. Now, you could put in manual SQL rules into the data quality product if you'd like, but we have a data quality agent that intelligently recommends and with your approvals can apply those data quality checks for you so you can get that broader coverage across your full data estate more quickly. And that helps with the scale problem we talked about. And then finally, we embed alerts and insights directly into the places where you want to work and where decisions are getting made. So whether that's directly in the Alation data catalog or triggering signals through Slack, Teams, email, the Chrome browser, into BI tools themselves, you can see the data quality associated with a given report. Those are all available to you so that you can take proactive resolution and get insights all within a unified view and a single flow within that Alation world. So let's dig a little bit into that first differentiator I highlighted, intelligent data quality to measure what matters. We leverage our behavioral analysis engine, or what we call BAE, which helps teams discover which assets are being used, how often, and by whom to eliminate the guesswork, because we're using real telemetry data and not just data from within Alation, but we're ingesting query logs from BI tools so we can tell you which reports and other things are being used the most or which critical data elements are feeding those different tools to make sure that you are prioritizing what should be put in place. So instead of blanketing your environment with quality checks, you can target your most high impact assets. So that means less noise, more signal, and a better return on your time and your data quality investment. The second differentiator is around instant data quality by leveraging this AI agent to do the heavy lifting. So this agent-driven workflow takes the guesswork out of rule configuration by allowing you to not have to write custom SQL. You could do that if you'd like to, but the agent can recommend those checks like timeliness, uniqueness, format validation, and can apply them instantly if you give it approval. So we're going to walk through that here in a second with a demo. So this means that you can scale that quality coverage across thousands of assets in minutes, not months. And it's especially powerful for data stewards or business domain users who might not be technical. You don't need to know SQL. You can go ahead and let the agent do the work for you. And it's just a point and click interface that you can select what you want to have applied. So this is a very fast time to value proposition for what's going on in the market. And then last but not least is that unified experience. So this allows you to have a more proactive resolution experience as needed to follow up if you see a data quality signal saying that something's off. So rather than locking that away in a separate tool, we're making sure that's exposed and visible throughout the catalog. I mentioned Slack, Teams, messaging, Chrome, directly in BI tools. You're seeing a little pop-up here of what the notification would look like within Slack so that you can drive immediate awareness and action and be able to collaborate with the data stewards associated with those data assets, because we can have that defined within the catalog. And again, we'll show what this looks like in a moment. So the second point I would make is this is also increasing organizational alignment, because analysts can see if a data set is trustworthy before they use it. Executives can see directly in their dashboard the data quality health or the BI tool that they're looking at, and stewards can resolve issues from where they're managing the metadata, setting the policies, et cetera, directly within the Alation platform. So this is what we mean by embedded data intelligence. It's not just visibility, it's the operational value, getting that alignment across the organization and making sure we drive outcomes where it matters most. And so with that quick flyby of the product, would love, Kyle, for you to share some of the insights you've gotten from our early customers and those part of the beta program that you've been running.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. So as Steve mentioned, as we're transitioning into GA here, we're coming off the tail end of a really great beta program. We've been running with a number of customers. We've also got a number of customers to sign up, and we're now deployed in their production environments. And I won't go through each of the quotes here, but what I would summarize is DQ allows us to get down to some really operational use cases within our existing customers, like solving SLA requirements or key KPIs to monitor within their business requirements. Quotes are great. I know Steve talked a lot about the different components on slides, but I'm sure you're all here to see what the product looks like and feels. So let's transition into that.
Awesome. So I will stop sharing so you can grab control here. Let me do that. And just as a reminder to the audience, I saw one question come in. If there's others, please go ahead and submit those. Hopefully you can all see the Q&A panel. We'd love to answer any questions that you might have as we go.
Great. Can everyone see my screen? Can you see it, Steve?
Yep, you look good to go.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. All right, everyone. So we're going to walk through a quick tutorial. I'm going to summarize a lot of what Steve just described on the slides, where we're going to take a data set, define a number of data quality checks on them that cover different dimensions of data quality. We're going to publish that as a monitor, which I'll describe, and then see the results run live. So we're on the Alation home screen. One of the things I'm going to talk a lot about is how we've integrated data quality directly within existing workflows within the catalog. But the main avenue in which you can access data quality is through this little check icon you can see on the home screen. That's going to bring me down to this data quality home screen where we have our overview page. Now I'm going to come back to this because this already assumes that you have data quality set up and active checks running on a daily, weekly, hourly basis, et cetera, and a number of different sort of reporting widgets across health scores and dimensions of data quality. What I'm going to do now is hit this Add Monitor button. And what you can see here is we're going to get brought to the screen where I basically have two different avenues. We have a scan asset step and a manual selection. And what I'm going to talk about really comes down to a lot of customer intent. So where we see certain customers leveraging our manual selection now is customers who know exactly what tables or data sets they might want to monitor. And they can go down and they can search, they can filter by schema, they can filter by BI reports, which I'll talk a little about later, and get down really quickly to the asset they're looking for. Now, Steve talked a little bit about our behavioral analysis engine, which I'm going to show through the scan assets piece. And when you connect to the catalog, we do things like metadata extraction, and on top of that, query log ingestion. And query log ingestion, we can go down to the underlying data source, parse through the query logs, and look at the most queried tables. And in this instance, you see here, this is hooked up to our internal Snowflake account where there's 76 tables, and we've listed all of them in terms of popularity or usage. Now, many of our customers who are earlier in their journey will start with us and look to QLI to say, hey, let's start with the most 100, most 500, most popular tables and start scoping things from there. But they really are able to scope or prioritize and have this co-pilot to suggest what should we think about monitoring. And so you can see here we have this little check icon because some of the most widely used data sets within our environment have active monitors on them because we know they're critical. And so we try and expose this to do a couple things, show where there's active monitoring to avoid redundant monitors. I'm actually going to go down and select a table here, or this would be a credit score table. So I like this example for the purposes of demos because it's fairly intuitive. Like everyone in this call probably has a credit card and a credit score. And so what we see within this table is there's three columns: the column with the credit score, the customer ID the credit score pertains to, and then the report date. So we've got a good mix of columns across a timestamp column, a numerical column, et cetera. There's a couple ways which we can start configuring checks on this. We have our manual, or sort of what I would call our no-code checks that we try and make as easy to use as possible, or I could select an accuracy check. And as you see, as I'm clicking down here, we map to this like standard 6 dimensions of data quality: accuracy, completeness, consistency, validity, uniqueness. We also have a custom check capability, which I'll talk about, and we report on those different dimension levels. So I could do this all manually, or I could hit this recommended checks piece, which will take a little bit to load. But what's happening here is we're using the power of metadata that exists in the catalog along with LLMs. And you can see here that we've then set a number of inputs to the LLM that has returned a set of recommended checks, a total of 9 total checks. Before I jump into those, let's talk a little bit about this, because a credit score has a defined range, for example, of 300 or 850. So I'm looking for some sort of accuracy check here that's compliant within that range. A customer ID column, typically we see people putting on a uniqueness or a completeness style check, and then a report date column is a timestamp column, so a freshness check. So let's see what it returned. As you can see here, I defined a min check of 300, a max check of 850. So that's great. That's what I was looking for, was compliant with that range. Recommended a percentile check. As I'm validating this, it's probably not something I'm going to use, but I'm good with this column now, so I'll move on to the next one. Okay, uniqueness check, checking for duplicate values, or a completeness check, checking for null values. Those are really great, straightforward checks. Also, a validity check. I'm not, for the purpose of this, I'm not going to move forward with that. And then let's go to the report date. You can see it recommended a timeliness check or a freshness check to make sure the date's within the last day. Let's say I wanted to change this to the hour, minute, or let's just call it 30 days. I could make that change as well. We also have the ability to filter checks. Filtering can be done through a number of different mechanisms, but let's just use an example. A time-based partition is a very common filter, where let's say you want to scope down the size of a check and run it on a certain, the last day's worth of data as opposed to the entire data set. We have that capability as well. We also have, see, 2 completeness checks. One of these is actually a missing count. One's a missing percent. I'm going to just use the missing count and remove this missing percent one. So in totality, you can see here we have about 6 checks assembled across a number of the different dimensions that exist. But what happens if one of our out-of-the-box checks, which we have about 60 total of, isn't offered? You also have the ability to create a custom check in the form of a SQL query. Then if it has a threshold defined, you can basically run it alongside any of our other checks. And I'm going to show that or showcase that right now. So I'm going to go down, hit add check. I'm going to pick accuracy. In this instance, I'm going to hit SQL query as the metric, and you can see here a number of things pop down where I can input my query. So I'm going to set this up, and then I'm going to describe it, and I'm going to call this my significant score drop detection. And I'm going to input the query, but before that, I'm going to say, what are we doing here? Custom checks usually allow customers to find a check across multiple columns, multiple tables, so basically multiple pieces of logic within a single check. And so in this instance, I want to check if a credit score drops by more than 100 points within the last 30 days. So the credit score column and then the time column, I want to trigger that check to fail. And so that's what I'm going to set up here. I'm going to hit save and I'm going to move forward. And so we're now at the summary page. And the summary page just provides one last step before we're going in to publish these collection of checks, is what we call a monitor, just to summarize what happened. So 1 table, 3 columns, 7 checks. Now, we're going to run the check live, so I'm not going to execute this run preview capability now, but something we push our customers to do is test all the checks before you go and publish them and schedule them to run on a daily basis per se. And so when we do that, we can expose results. And I've actually done that before this call. It takes a couple minutes to run, but I want to move quickly through this here. But on this side, you can see what happened in the instance. And so I set up a couple things intentionally just to show the results, but you can see here most of these checks passed, which is great. One failed, which we can see why, the observed value against the pass fail condition. But let's talk about this one check that erred. And in this instance, we provide a lot of details around why the check erred, where we actually can store a lot of information on the back end and actually leverage an LLM to provide a suggested description. And in this case, the syntax in the query is wrong because I inputted the wrong table. That's the issue. I can go back and resolve it, and voila, we can run this, we can go back forward and execute this. So that summarizes this. The other capability I'll highlight is every time we take these checks, we can expose the generated SQL that gets pushed down to the underlying data source where the check is ran. And we also expose the estimated runtime for users. So as you can see, the total of 7 checks were bucketed into 3 different unique queries, and we expose the runtime for all of it and the runtime per query. And this helps customers, one, if they want to copy and paste it elsewhere or use the runtime to provide some sort of estimate of how expensive it might be on a platform like Snowflake or Databricks. we see a lot of leverage in that ability. So I'm going to go back here. We're now at the summary step. I'm going to move forward to this configure step. And now we're going through the process of what I call taking to check to monitor. So you can think of a monitor as a logical grouping of checks. Customers define a monitor by, say, a BI report, a data product, a CDE, a use case, a project. It's very flexible. It's really up to the customer. But I'm going to call this my credit score monitor. I want it to run daily at 8 a.m. And I want to get notified. We're a Slack shop. Some of you might be a Teams shop. Some of you might use email, but it's very configurable. I want to get notified if one or more of these checks fails, what I'm defining now, I'm going to get notified in this channel within Slack. And so I'm going to create this monitor. Boom, it's great. We're going to run this, and then I'm going to come back. We'll retrace our steps a little bit, and I'll highlight some of the capabilities we have within the product. So if I go down here, we're going to have the credit score. Every monitor we create is a unique page with reporting. You can see there's nothing here because we haven't run this, but we also have the offer the capability to do ad hoc runs. So that's what I'm going to do right now. You can see it was triggered, and that's going to take a couple of minutes to run. And while that happens, I'm going to come back to this home screen. And so what are we looking at? We can see here, what's my data quality score look like over time, or what it looked like over the past day? Looks like a bunch of checks failed. I would probably want to investigate that. Also, what is my dimension level? So customers want to know their total health score, but what's my completeness look like? And this shows a more of an admin view. Something we plan to do soon is offer the ability to filter this by domain or user, for example. We also want to expose coverage, how many tables, columns, BI reports are being monitored, and also some time series database of the number of checks running on a daily basis, along with monitors that have checks that are failing, ranked by failure rate, to expose the, what's on fire, frankly. And so I'm going to go to this monitors tab. This is something I talked about either, but every time you create a monitor and publish a monitor, it gets a unique score. We provide a number of pieces of information of when it's ran, who created it, how many checks are passing, how many are failing. You can search for any monitor. When people ask us, how does this scale? You could filter by just monitors that are failing. You also can search for any monitor depending on its name. We also have this assets tab because we understand a lot of customers think about data quality from a table level view. And so anytime you put a monitor on a table, we expose that table in a list here where it gets a health score, and also some information with this view details tab will show you can see the shipments has a lot of checks that are running on it, a list of all the checks are running, how they're passing, how they're failing, what's going on. Let's go back to this monitors tab and track this monitor. And hopefully it runs. If it doesn't, I've also created it beforehand in case we need to go fetch another one. But you can see here it's still running. And one of the main questions we get is, after I've created a monitor, can I edit it? Can I make modifications to it? And the answer is yes, you can. We can go back to the same view here and bring in any new tables, any new columns, edit a check, add a check to an existing monitor. It's all very flexible. The settings tab also is configurable. Again, let's say you want to delete a monitor in totality and start over, you can do that. And then the run history tab is loading now, and you can see this job has been triggered and it's running, and it's currently running. And what's happening now is we're pushing this down to the data source where this monitor is being executed. What gets returned to Alation is just the results of the check. So let's go back, and we can probably find a very similar monitor that I created beforehand and use that as an example of what happens after it's ran. So you can see here's the same monitor. I ran it beforehand. We can go to the run history tab, and you can see now we know it's ran because there's information appearing, and look at, say, what happened for the schedule. And so here's all the 7 checks. We kind of know what happened because we did a test run, so we're replaying this a little bit. But let's use the example of a freshness check. Like, how do we remediate issues within Alation? So I can go here and say, okay, this freshness check had the dates need to be within the last 30 days or the last month, basically, and we had a field value that's 480 days old. So how do we fix this? There's a couple of different ways. One of the main ways is we can go directly to the table level page. And what you're going to see here on the top right side is this data quality sort of widget or portal that shows at a table level, for example, what happened or what are the active monitors running directly at an object level. What's my score? You only see 4 dimensions here because these are only the types of checks that exist on this table. And so we provide very granular reporting for our customers along with the monitors. Also, because Alation is well known for its collaboration, we can see who the top users are and who the top stewards are, basically who owns this data. And I now know I have a monitor that's failing. My health score is 67%. That's not great. I want to fix this. And I go to my conversations tab here. And since Idris is the owner of this table, I could set a tag to Idris or ping him or start a conversation to investigate the issue. and he would go and find a way to do that. Now, another thing that would have happened also is if I bring up my Slack. Steve, can you see my Slack screen?
I can, yep.
Great. Okay, so in this channel, I should have gotten a notification. And here's our credit score monitor with a total of 7 checks. And because one of the checks failed, I was triggered, an alert was triggered proactively where I can go and I could click on this monitor to get brought back into the Alation catalog to see that. The other thing I can also do is, since Idris is the owner, I could forward this message to him directly and ask him to investigate the issue as well. You would see a very similar view in Teams, or you'd see a very UI in email as well. So I'm going to go back to the Alation home screen. And so that kind of summarizes an end-to-end flow of a pretty basic exercise of taking a data set, discovering a data set, writing a check on it, publishing that check, seeing the results populate live, and investigating an issue. Before I go back to it and cap this off, I will highlight a couple other capabilities where we won't go through the full process, but a lot of customers are very much at a more, business users think much more at the consumption layer, and a lot of BI reports end up in the catalog. And if Lineage is enabled on a BI report, this is an example, sheet 1. We should probably have a better name for this BI report, frankly, but hopefully you guys get the example of this is a Tableau report. And what we can do is fetch the underlying RDBMS tables that feed that report and now go through the same flow where we could bring in those columns, write checks on those columns, populate that in the results, and then each BI report, we'd be able to see that same widget or that data quality scorecard on every report level. In addition to that, we'll offer the Chrome extension, the Alation Anywhere Chrome extension on that Tableau report, where you will have a data quality certification to show health scores if you're just working within Power BI, Tableau, Looker, etc. So that's one last piece. I think that kind of summarizes it up. If there are any other further questions, there's a lot of stuff I could highlight depending on customer use case, and feel free to reach out to us after this if you want to even do a deeper dive. So with that, I probably will stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to you, Steve.
Awesome, thank you. I'm just gonna pull up one slide to kind of wrap things up, and then we've got a lot of great questions that have come in during your demo that seemed to really spark people's interest. So nice job on that, Kyle. That was a lot of ground you covered very elegantly. Just to wrap things up, again, I think the key points around this are, if you can leverage intelligence in your platform to help you prioritize and focus on what matters, making data quality more intelligent, leveraging agentic capabilities to help apply those checks more instantly and free up your resources, and then be able to take action directly within the interface where you're already operating on other things within Alation, but also those other tools that Kyle was talking through in terms of how notifications come out and the ability to see within BI tools and things like that. There is a white paper we've written on this. There's a lot of other resources on the website. So I'll just leave that QR code up for a minute here while we start to go through some of the questions. So the first question I will tee up was from somebody saying they have currently created their own dashboard to monitor data quality with breakup of dimensions, month-over-month quality, which I think means number, breakdown by business units, data assets, etc.
Yeah. Good question. I think where we're going with this is we talk to a lot of customers who want to map data quality reporting to their own business-specific processes or company-specific things. And so one of the things that we are going to do soon, post-GA, as part of our roadmap, is provide that data to customers, meaning we will take the DQ results. Either some existing customers might be familiar with our Alation Analytics database, where we will dump all the resorts into that. You could query on top of that to create your own custom report. We also are considering APIs as well. Basically, give you guys the results so you can build your own reporting and map to your own, whether it's a dimension or business-specific item. So yeah, great question.
Awesome. And while we're answering questions from Mega, I'm going to share this other one she had, which is around product availability. So from which version of Alation is this feature available? Can you talk about that, Kyle?
Yeah, so like many of our new products, it's only available on ACS, which is our cloud version.
And it is a separate product that
yes, good question. Great point. It's a separate SKU. It's you can purchase it in addition or on top of any of our existing tools.
Awesome. Okay. Kind of go down the list here. I can also see the votes that people have had. So we'll go to the next popular one, which was, let's see if I can share it here. Find it. I've got two different lists. Here we go. So from Erwin Cobrador, how does your tool handle scenarios where data is sourced from multiple systems, each providing varying levels of detail? Specifically, how can it automate? Okay, you got it. How can it automate the integration of these disparate sources to produce a unified report with consistent data fields while also ensuring data quality and eliminating manual effort?
Yeah, so there's a lot in this question, but it's a really good one. I think part of it, what I believe is just, it might need some clarification, is what data sources is. Can we run data quality on data that exists in disparate sources? And so we offer about 8 of our sources with our foundational offering: Snowflake, Redshift, Databricks, Google BigQuery, Oracle, SQL Server, Postgres, Synapse. We have customers who are active using up to 2 or 3 different sources, bringing them into Alation DQ, writing checks on data sets within each of these, and using data quality checks to execute them on different sources. So you can bring in those as long as it's one of their 7 or 8. We won't stop there. We understand there's a long tail of connectors. Alation itself has over a library of long connectors, but we started with what we see, frankly, as the most common data sources for not only Alation customers, but frankly for data quality needs. So that probably covers a lot of the question. And yeah, you would be able to execute data quality, see reports on different things. If you wanted to maybe filter by data source, we would probably provide that data for you in a more to be able to build a more custom report format as well. So yeah, I think that should cover most of your questions, but always feel free to reach out to me if you have any other, anything I missed there.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. All right, let's go to the next one here. How about this one from Nicholas? Can you provide feedback to checks, false positives for it to learn?
Can you provide feedback to checks, false positives for it to learn? So what the LLM typically does is it's able to understand how the user is, endorsing or deprecating checks. I think that kind of partially answers this question. But one of the things we are trying to do with the agent over time is having a more autonomous way to understand pattern behavior and match that. I will say the LLM suggestions today are very good at understanding the inputs we give them and providing very clean recommendations of what types of checks you might be thinking about.
Good response. Thank you, Kyle. You've got a fountain of knowledge here. All right, there's a few more. Let's just, there's more coming in too.
That's a really good question, is can you write a check that spans multiple tables? And we are looking in ways, and we are going to find ways to make this more out of the box with maybe a consistency or reference type check, but it is completely doable today. I've seen a number of customers do this within our custom SQL-based check, where they will have a check that spans multiple columns, spans multiple tables, and writes them in one check and has a condition to set whether it passes or fails. So yes, you can.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Is this tool compatible with D365, which is, I think, Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM and ERP?
I think we addressed that with the data source question. I think most of our roadmap would have us continuing down more cloud and on-prem oriented databases. So if there's a very custom need, feel free to reach out to the team. It's not something we support today, though, to answer the question.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that more broadly, we do have a professional services team that can build custom connectors. I don't know if that would apply yet to data quality, but that's definitely something we work with customers on if there's a strong need. Okay. Can DQ checks be stored in configuration tools such as Bitbucket?
So this kind of gets into the approach of can we provide the DQ results or the checks to the customers and give them an API to access it, which is a planned item for the roadmap, or Alation Analytics, which is a database we have where we dump the results and customers query on top of it and build it. So I think that's addressed by that question. So not currently, but we could potentially look at a way to give you guys the data to build your own level of reporting. Yeah. So similar themes of questions here with the.
Mm-hmm. All right. Got a few more. If you have any other questions, please chime them in here. We're going to go to Divyan Gupta. Can this be used to measure and monitor DQ rules, thresholds, and report DQ breaks automatically?
Yes. Yes, I believe that is what we just walked through to measure, monitor DQ rules, thresholds, and report DQ breaks automatically. Yes. So in that demo, we defined a set of data quality rules and a threshold. What our threshold in our instance is if one of the checks passes and you have made the decision to put it into a notification channel. For example, alert fatigue is something that I feel strongly about is a common pain point we hear from many in the market. One of the options we have is when you select a notification, you can hit none. If it's a low priority check, but maybe you want to check it once a month, you probably don't need to get notified. But in the instance where you do set a channel, Slack, for example, if one of those checks fails, it will trigger that threshold is triggered and it will cause it to create a notification. Now there are more granular thresholds, like if there's a column with a row with 1,000 rows in it and 5 of the fields are violated, that might be a threshold you're talking about. But that gets into a number of different things, which we can address. Just that probably be. Feel free to reach out to me on that question because I think we addressed the bulk of it.
Yeah, we forgot to put your personal email on the closing slide there.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
A lot of people chasing you. All right. So a few other questions here. One from Sahib about trials. So seeing Alation for the first time, is there a trial version? The answer is yes. Not sure if data quality is in the trial yet, Kyle, and his funny comment about whether it would support the age-old database called Microsoft Excel.
Yeah, if you're an existing customer, so Excel, no, we do not support Microsoft Excel, although I do love Excel as much as probably many of you do. If you do want to try it out and your existing customer, reach out to anyone at the account level, whether it's your account manager or rep, etc. If you're not an existing customer, feel free to either reach out to me directly after this call. I will respond, or Steve, they can probably go through the website as well. I think there's many different ways you can inbound us from that perspective as well, and someone will reach out.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll follow up with you. Thanks for the question. All right, a couple more here. What about possible different data quality rules depending on the different location or country of your client?
Yeah.
Rules by geolocation.
Yeah. So when it comes to manual rules, it's fairly flexible where whether it's regex patterns and stuff like that, you guys could input that stuff manually. When it comes to localization, we're built, the LLM capabilities built on top of AWS Bedrock, which has basically regional context where we see whether you're in North America or APAC or EMEA, it understands that regional context and makes recommendations based on those sorts of items. If it gets even more custom, we can, where you might be in one region, but the check you want to apply exists in a different region, there's ways where you can do that manually.
Awesome. Can a user search or discover by DQ dimensions? For example, can I search for all accuracy related checks?
Good question. So we do report on an accuracy level from an aggregate view. When it comes to how we report, we'd more on a monitor level. So you would either go down to a table or a monitor and you could view all the accuracy checks from that point of view. And when it comes to reporting at the aggregate level, we're running basically a cron job once a day that calculates how many total accuracy checks passed divided by how many total checks ran. So there isn't a list where you'd see them all at once, but when it comes to, say, a per monitor view, you could easily see how many accuracy checks do I have on this monitor and which ones are passing and failing.
Amazing. All right. A couple left here from Nicholas Howard. Is there any ability to show the delta change to records over time? For example, the ability to identify new exceptions added in the last week.
Yes. So I think a couple of things here. One is the version history of a check. If a check has changed, can we see that level of detail? That is like a very near term, that is a roadmap item. Exceptions would be shown in the run history tab, where if you're calling an exception, or we call it a violation when a check fails, we could expose that level of detail as well for the run history of what failed versus in this monitor run versus the last one. So yeah, I think there's a couple of things that might get into there, but yes, for the most part.
Awesome. And looks like the last question here, unless someone comes up with another one, are what are some possible controls to ensure stewards do not create multiple versions of the same DQ rules?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So one of the things we expose as early as possible in the process is whether an asset is already have active monitoring on that, with the ability to go and you can define on that object, hey, what are the monitors that exist? What are the monitors that exist on this object? What are the rules within them? And so we have some stuff. We have some stuff there. We also have an advanced permission system to only expose from a DQ lens the data sets that stewards have access to. What we are investing in is a redundant check capability. So if a user creates a check on the same column, for example, that already exists, and they try and move forward, this is a roadmap item we will expose if that already exists. So very good question as well. Yeah.
Awesome. The hits just keep on rolling here. We've got another question. Can you speak more to the statistics or numbers on the monitors and checks? For example, let me share it here. Being able to provide a feedback loop to the org or leadership to better articulate ROI in the tool or importance of data quality overall with low data literate organization.
Yeah, so I think this really gets into a couple of different things, but filtering, and it's a good question, Kathy. I think filtering is one of the aspects of one of the things that we're currently working on too. As another roadmap item is the ability to filter data quality scores based on like a domain or business unit to say, okay, here's my aggregate score of what's going on from an admin point of view. Well, what's going on in the different business units in our company? We see that as an important view. From a scoring perspective, yes, we have the dimension level scoring, but I totally understand like some people might not know what a uniqueness or validity score looks like or what those types of checks are actually doing, which is why we have a total health score that we try and keep more simplistic to say, okay, here's a baseline and my health's 80%, which basically tells you that 80% of your checks are passing. And that's generally fair. I mean, every company has a different perspective on it, but we try and start as high level as possible, bring customers as they need down into more granular points of information, and also have the ability to filter based on different views, because one business unit's probably not going to care about the data quality of another business unit if they're just a steward. So that's how we plan to address that.
Excellent. Good detail. And last question here, what part of the Alation data quality feature leverages Agentic AI?
Yeah, good question. It's the recommended checks piece. So when we went through the process of configuring a check, I explained how to do it manually. And you can do that manually, but what we did instead was we hit the recommend checks engine. And what happened was an agent or an LLM basically took some inputs we gave it and then provided a set of fully defined checks. So in a matter of seconds, it wrote 9 total checks, I believe, or in that instance, and we kept about 6 of them. Yeah, we ended up getting 9, deleting 3 of them, keeping 6, and moving forward with them. And those were fully defined. You didn't have to write, or all you had to do was click one button. And so that instance, we're built on AWS. We use Bedrock, which basically routes it to an Anthropic model. The Anthropic model takes our library of checks, returns a set of recommendations based on the context it has and what checks they think should exist on those fields.
Excellent. I think that does it. Kyle, you've dropped a lot of knowledge today. Thank you for answering all those questions. And thank you all for joining us today and asking those excellent questions. We're really excited to be able to unveil this new product out to the market. We're very excited to have it as part of our platform. And with that, I think we can wrap things up unless there's anything else you'd like to add, Kyle.
No, thank you. Thanks everyone for attending. Steve, thanks for emceeing. It was great to do this.
Awesome. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.